we live? I'm live now, but let's check. Yes, okay. Hello guys, and welcome to the Dojo's workshop. We are going to do a workshop on VOD reviews today, how to do them and how to do them for different levels.
Let's check.
Yes, okay. Hello guys, and welcome to the Dojo's workshop. We are going to do... Okay, fixed. So, if you want to participate, then go ahead and come to our Discord and join the talk channel. You can participate in voice chat, or you can participate in the chat if you have any questions. We are going to cover VOD reviews today, so if you want to do this workshop then feel free to join me. I'm going to wait a few more minutes. We already have one person in the voice and also some of you in the chat. So let's get back to Discord. All right, I'm back and the stream should be live. And we're going to wait a few more minutes. If anyone wants to come, then we are going to get to the workshop. So tell me a bit about yourself now that you are here, Nerbs.
Oh, hi. I would say that I'm kind of more of a casual player. Not necessarily one of those looking to go to the pro scene myself. But I would call myself like a bit of a super nerd. So just in the sense that I really dig the exploring the understanding systems, and that includes things like Overwatch. So kind of digging into sort of what is the meta game, not necessarily speaking about meta quote unquote of Overwatch, but understanding how it all fits together, and that's something that kind of makes me tick, and so that's partly why I'm here.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Seems like we are not going to have any more participants, but that's fine. I'm just going to go ahead, and I see that we have some viewers on YouTube as well. So if you guys have any questions, just feel free to pitch in and ask them. So today the topic is going to be VOD reviews, and I chose this topic because it's one of the basic things for improvement that you can do. And as you are the only one here, Nerbs, do you do VOD reviews of any kind?
I have just started, so I'm kind of a beginner at that. Yeah. Oh, by the way, in Discord, in the stream, the slide is reversed along the vertical axis.
Okay.
But in YouTube, I looked at that. It is normal. So
let me fix that quickly.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, so when you get into the game, you still have to learn a lot of things about it. You need to get familiar with the heroes, with the maps, how the objectives work, and stuff like that. And generally, when we play any kind of game, there's a process to the learning, and there's a learning curve to every game, and these curves are different for different games depending on how hard is it and how complex the game itself is. And Overwatch is one of the, I think, one of the most complex games out there, because we don't only have to pay attention to the mechanics, but also there's a really big team aspect to it, and there's a lot of lexical knowledge as well. Lexical knowledge here meaning that you have to know about the heroes in the game, the maps, the abilities, the ults, and the meta itself, and a lot of things. So not as much as, for example, for a mobile game like League of Legends or Dota 2, but still it's a lot more than traditional FPS games. So there's a lot to learn, and video on demand and VOD reviews. So what is video on demand? We call these any kind of video that you record yourself playing the game, either from the first person perspective, or if someone is spectating you and recording you, or now you can go ahead and record your replays in Overwatch, which gives you a little bit more room to work with and look around and stuff like that. But traditionally, what reviews mean, we are looking at our own gameplay videos and try to figure out what kind of mistakes we made and try to improve ourselves based on the conclusions from those kinds of mistakes, and also strong plays, because we also want to look at where we are good and what kind of strengths we have in the game. So I touched the topic of these skill curves, and generally when you start experiencing a new game, it's a whole new experience and you're happy with the game and there's still a lot of things to explore. And then you, after a while, you start feeling like you are stagnating, you start feeling like you are standing in the same rank, which can be really frustrating. And this is what we call the plateau of skill. So it goes up, you reach a level which comes from previous experience and your talents, so to say, so what you bring yourself to the table, and then you go up the ranks, and then it reaches a certain point where you get stuck and it's really hard to move from there. And VOD reviews are one of the best tools to move past these plateaus, to try to get better, because it's basically reviewing yourself, taking notes, creating goals, and making sure that you act on these kinds of goals. So does that make sense? Do you have any questions so far?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
All right. Okay, so these are VOD reviews, and why they are important is because they are a foundational tool for improvement. So for improvement in Overwatch, you can do a lot of things. You can go play in quick play to learn more about the game, and the game requires you to do that until you are a certain level. Then you can go in arcade games and do try hard free for all if you want to work on the mechanics. You can also do things like set up custom games. Now we have a scriptable workshop, and we can create these aim training tools and other kind of training tools that players can use. And there are a lot of things that you can do to improve and to practice. But the VOD review itself is a tool to reveal mistakes and to make sure that you know where you lack, and gives you a way to figure out what you need to do differently in order to get through that plateau and start rising in skill again. So when we are doing VOD reviews, and it's especially true for anyone who is doing it for the first time or just still getting the feel of it, that you need to focus on the big picture, because there can be a lot of things going wrong in the game, and it can be really hard for us to identify where we made the mistakes that are happening during a match, because a lot of things are going on. But the important thing is that we have a big picture and we focus on the biggest things first. And after fixing the big mistakes, we can drill down. At least this is how I teach VOD reviews, and this is how I do my coaching as well when I do it. So VOD reviews are a long-term investment, and it's really important to understand this, that when we are talking about improvement, it's not something like there's no magic here. You have to, like, it's like the gym. You have to go to the gym for a few months to see any kind of result. And usually it's faster for us, fortunately. And welcome, someone joined us in the voice. So usually it's faster for us to reap results of the VOD reviews, but it's a time investment, and we really need to keep doing it to see the results and to be able to work with it. So sometimes after a VOD review, and especially if it is not done by you, but if it's done by a higher level player or a coach, it can give you a big spike in your skills, because it's something just clicks in and you understand what you were doing wrong, and you can just figure it out and do it right in the next few games. But usually with time it eases back, and if you gained a lot of SR because of a good VOD review, you are going to drop back. But if you keep doing this, the rate is going to go upwards, and you are going to feel more confident in your game, and also you are going to gain more SR on the long run. So yeah, and one other good aspect of doing VOD review and focusing on improvement is that a lot of players have competitive anxiety. That's basically the thing that when you get anxious because you play against other players, and when you lose SR, you feel bad because you identify yourself, your self-worth with SR. And when we are focusing on improvement, we can shift our mindset from I need to win to an I need to improve, which can be a lot more beneficial on the long term, and it can be a lot easier for us emotionally to deal with failures and levers and stuff like that, because we can focus on ourselves instead of just flowing with the game and just grinding the ladder. So these are the things why VOD reviews are important. Any questions regarding this one? No. Then we can continue. I'm looking at the YouTube chat, but not much here as well. Okay, so the next question is, who can do VOD reviews? And anyone who is familiar with the basics of the game. So if you learned the game, if you learned the lexical knowledge, the skill of reviewing your games and understanding what is going on needs you to understand what's in the game actually. So you need to be able to identify the heroes, need to be able to identify what you need to do with a certain pick, and so on. But there are a lot of situational things that you have to think about, and identifying what is the right play in a given situation is the hard part of VOD reviews. And this is why it's really important to, if you are a lower skill level player, it's not really a good idea to take advice from a high level player if they don't adjust their tips to your level. Because I can tell you to, like, I usually give metaphors and examples from sport. I can tell you how to drive like a Formula One pilot, but you are not going to be able to do it because you lack the 10,000 hours of practice. So I need to figure out, when I give tips to you during a VOD review, what you can actually do and what's achievable to you. This is not a concern when you are doing self-VOD reviews. It's more like when you ask for VOD reviews from other players. But it's really important to always try to adjust the tips that you get to your own situation. Generally, you should do the VOD reviews for yourself. So this is like an exercise that should be a daily or weekly activity for you if you pay attention to your improvement. But you can also use the Dojo, for example, the Dojo coaching channel. Welcome, someone joined us.
Hey, Alien.
Oh, hi, Tandy. So you can use the free coaching communities to get VOD reviews. And you can also go to Reddit, and there are free coaches and also paid coaching as well, and paid VOD reviews that you can ask for. Usually paid means that it's going to be a high quality thing. Of course, not always, but if you trust the coach, then it's generally going to mean that you are going to get a high quality VOD review that's adjusted to your level. With free, you can't really rely too much on the quality, but generally, for example, on the Dojo, we keep a really keen eye on what the tips that are being given for the players, and if there's anything that's out of the box and really far from the player's skill, then we pitch in. So yeah, and as you progress in the game, as you learn more in the game, you are going to notice more mistakes, and this is what I was talking about. First, we are talking about the big picture, and as we get better, we understand more about the game. We understand that our mistakes are not black and white, but it's a series of steps that lead to a mistake actually. And the better we are at the game, the more we can do, the more precisely we can go and analyze these kinds of mistakes. So I think that's about this one. Okay, so the VOD review process. One of the things I noticed in a lot of free communities that do VOD reviews, and for a lot of players who do self-VOD reviews, is they do it, but they don't really have a process. And I wanted to define some kind of process to serve as a checklist. I really believe in checklists because it makes our lives easier to have a framework that we work with, and also to not to forget the steps and not to leave anything out from the process that's important. So my VOD review process, and this can be really subjective, different people do different methodologies, but my recommendation is the following. First, you open up your video, and whether it is on YouTube or this is a local recording, it doesn't really matter. You get the video, you start watching it, and you start to identify mistakes. We are going to talk more in depth about what kind of mistakes you need to look for on different levels, but this is the first step. Start going through sequentially, going through the video and try to look for mistakes that were made in the game. And then when you are done, you need to take notes. What I usually do, I have a notebook right next to me when I play, and when I do a VOD review, usually I take notes, just marking categories if I do this quickly, or really just writing down the details on what was happening in the game and what I see as a mistake. And if the same mistake happens again, I just note it down. And then at the end, I can count what is going on. And the next one is identifying the main mistakes and creating goals. It's really important because a lot of people do VOD reviews and they have a good intent, but they are not really carrying it through to their games. So they review themselves, they say that, okay, this was a mistake, I'm going to think about it, but there are no goals. And it's really important for any kind of improvement, and it's not just gaming related, it's any field that you are working with or if you are studying, to create goals that are achievable but still put you a little bit out of your comfort zone. So create goals, and this can be like, you die too much, I should focus on dying less in the next few games. And then when you have a set of goals, and these shouldn't be more than 3 to 5 at max, when you are playing, you pay attention to these goals and try to figure out if you can do them, if they were realistic, or if you wanted to do too much, you can just drop those. If you feel like it's too far in skill or really out of the comfort zone for you, monitor your progress. Like if you figure out that you are not hitting headshots, it's really easy to just after the game go to the stats screen and see how the headshots were for you in this game. And then you can pay more attention to hitting headshots. So there are some things that are really easily measurable. Some things you just need to kind of pay attention to and try to figure out how you can measure the progress for them. Like, for example, gamesense goals are really generally hard to monitor, but if you can figure out something or get help with figuring out how to measure it, it gives you a really good history of what you worked with. And then resolve your goals. It's a really important next step that after 1 week, for example, I do this on a weekly basis, but it can be different for you. You need to resolve the goals and you need to see if they were really done, if you were really paying attention to them, or if you had trouble focusing on them during the game. Maybe the goal was too vague, for example, and you need to specify it more, or it was too hard for you to pay attention to it, or because it was too hard, you underperformed. So there can be a lot of things, but it's really important to take a deep breath, see how you did in the previous week, and take away what you can do better in the next week. So it's a process. We are working with iterations here. And the good videos are for VOD reviews are the close lost competitive games, because when you feel like you were really trying hard and the team was there and the game felt like it can be an even game, but you still lost, those are the most intensive games, and those are the best to learn from. Generally, wins are not as good because you won the game. Maybe it was easy for you. If it was a close win, it's still good. But it was a stomp of any kind, it's not recommended to use that. Sometimes it is, sometimes it can reveal big mistakes, but generally we like to work with really close games. So any questions regarding this part?
I don't have a question right now, but your sweatshirt is amazing. Off topic, sorry.
It has a pizza as well. I'm not sure if I can show it, but yeah, it's a DJ Space Cat with a pizza.
That's amazing. I don't have the stream open, but that sounds amazing.
Okay, so any questions to the VOD review process?
I imagine you might go into this, but do you have like kind of a sampling of specific goals that are sort of optimal?
Yeah, we are going to talk about the different kind of mistakes and how I plan to generally build them up and what to pay attention to. I'm probably not going to do a VOD review, but we might do that, a short one. Just going to go through the process and the kind of mistakes that you need to pay attention to.
I did have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So you said you're a big fan of checklists. I'm the same way. What do you mean by checklist? I know that sounds really dumb, but like, is it very detailed or do you leave it broad to interpretation?
When I mentioned the checklist, it was about the VOD review process itself. So what you can see on the screen right now. It's specific in a way to give you a good foundation. It doesn't go into detail, like it shouldn't be really detailed when you do a VOD review, because VOD reviews are not like you are not playing, and it's generally hard to pay a lot of attention to our improvements because it's not as rewarding as the game itself. The game is rewarding in a lot of ways. Like you log in, there are sounds, there are effects, you see your loot boxes, you see your rank. During the game, you get into a flow state, and it rarely happens in a training environment because training and VOD reviews are designed to help you on the long run, and we don't really have immediate benefits from it that makes us happy and fires different hormones in the brains to keep us doing the same things and get attached to it. So training is hard, and that's why I believe that a vague checklist of kind of like this helps you into getting into the process, and it's not really detailed to the last kind of mistakes that you can make, because that would be too overwhelming, and a lot of times it's really situational what can happen in the game. So that's about it, but it can be really personal. Like I know some people have like 8 pages of a checklist of different things that you can look for in the game, and when they review a situation, they go through the checklist just to make sure not to miss anything. And if you want to be really precise, you can do that, but generally it's easier to just keep it vague. But as I said, it's personal. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Cool. Anything else?
Yeah. So you talked about the flow states.
Yep.
I feel like whenever I'm like really into the game, I forget tracking ults or keeping track of cooldowns. How can I work on that?
Yeah, this can happen. It's really interesting how our brains work during playing games. Actually, I'm really fascinated by the topic. This is something that we call autopilot. It can happen in a lot of situations. You do the same things again and again, and you forget to pay attention to them because you kind of pay attention to other things. And the best real life example is that when you go away from home, and when you close the door, usually you can't really recall if you closed the door at all or how many turns you did, because it's a kind of a habit. And when we are playing games, we get into these habitual situations. Like during a team fight, I want to heal my Reinhardt in the front, and I just focus on the Reinhardt. And it's really hard to pay attention to anything else. So something that you can do about this, something that I know that worked for a few of the pupils that I had, is to start narrating yourselves, like start talking about what is happening on the screen and start reminding yourself what you need to pay attention to. So something like, I need to pay attention to the kill feed, I need to pay attention to how many of us are alive to be able to get the hell away from the team fight if needed. And this is why during the VOD review you can identify goals, and these goals can be really good things to rely on to get yourself out from these kind of flow states where you are not really focusing on the whole game, just on a small aspect of it. When you start paying attention to the situation instead of just flowing with it and going with what is happening, then you realize that there are a lot of things going on, and it pulls you out from this autopilot. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it has to be bad though, because like if you focus on everything at this, you can't focus on everything, so you have to practice things that you can go into autopilot with, or like aim, for example.
Yeah. So when you start focusing on, like, you need to think about when you go into these states, you are not really thinking about, you just go with the happenings in the game. When you start thinking about something, usually it gives you a clarity of mind, and you don't, I didn't mean to say that you need to pay attention to the whole game. You still need to pay attention to small things that you need to work on, but the idea is that when you force yourself to focus, then it pulls you out from this auto reaction thingy that is happening. So then you can be in the moment. Okay? All right. Cool. All right. So getting back to the VOD reviews. So I was talking about goals, and I really believe that VOD reviews should be built up as a skill. VOD review as a skill should be built up. So instead of trying to do the whole thing and trying to be able to review a professional player game and take away all that can be taken away, you should really think about it as a skill that you can improve in. And there's going to be a system for different kind of game situations that are really critical in Overwatch. And through these situations, we review ourselves. And as we get better in the VOD reviews, we can start paying attention to more things. And the message here is, try to not overwhelm yourself, because you can find a lot of mistakes, you can set a lot of goals, but usually it is better to keep it 1 to 3, 5 at max of the kind of goals that you need to work on. And you really need to work with these, you really need to pay attention to these, and that's how you can improve, and that's how the VOD review process itself is going to improve in you. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, before we get to that, can any of you tell me what are the most critical parts of a match in Overwatch that we can take away most of the mistakes from? Like any kind of happening situation that comes to your mind.
What things do you...
Do you mean in the sense of like how we prepare for a fight, and then like right after the tracking, like ult tracking and things like that?
Something like that. So what are the most important things that we can look for, that we identify as mistakes, or the biggest giveaways of mistakes?
Positioning and communication, I would think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, and it's sort of like multiple things at once, but the risk benefit ratio of like, you know, am I solo on some epic flank while my team's still in spawn, and am I engaging 6 people at the beginner level? That becomes really common for a lot of people. So
Yeah,
multiple at once, but the risk benefit ratio of like,
we have some echo. Hello,
am I
Tom.
solo?
Hey, yeah, sorry about my car.
Okay.
Mute yourself.
Yeah, so what you mentioned, I agree. These are important things to think about, but there are, as I interpret the game, there are bigger things that we can pay attention to. And I would just go ahead and say it. It's when you die in the game, it's the biggest mistake that you can do in like 95% of the situations, because sometimes there are bigger things that build up and snowball into a lost game. But when you die, you get out of the game. That means that you are going to have to wait for yourself to respawn. You are going to have to wait for regrouping with a team. Your ults are not charging, and you can't take part in the game anymore. So when I'm doing VOD reviews for anyone, and when I need to recommend what to look for, or you just want to go quickly through the biggest mistakes, I think that you need to look at why you died. Why you died here? Why did I die here? That's a question that I generally ask myself when I do VOD reviews, or ask the question from someone who I'm coaching. So what I'm looking at in a situation like this is, what's the cause? Why did I really die here? What killed me? So that's one of the questions that, regarding it can be tied to positioning, it can be tied to awareness, it can be tied to a lot of things. We are not really going in deep in that, but like, I was killed by the McCree because I was stunned and fanned, and I really didn't have my teammates around me, and that was the cause. And it's really important to understand what kinds of decisions led to the situation when I ended up dead. Okay, so next question, and there's a lot of questions here regarding positioning. Are you in a good or safe position? So if you watched our videos, we were talking about a system, about 2 questions regarding positioning. Am I able to do my job, and am I safe here? And you kind of want to find a balance between these two, because you can be a really good position to be able to do your job with DPS, for example, or a healer. I'm a really good position with a healer because I can heal everyone in the team. But if that makes me exposed and leads to me dying, that means that was a bad position after all. The next is timing. Was the death avoidable, or was it a timely one? And timely here means that sometimes you need to die quickly, because, for example, most of your teammates died, and the enemy has the point, and you can't really do much about the situation, and you need to die quickly. So that's a good death, actually, because you couldn't really make anything useful from that situation. But it's important to look back at the previous few seconds in the game and figure out if the death was avoidable. So for example, I see a lot of people just running in without paying attention to the shields and dying because they eat a lot of spam damage, even before they can click heads. Like, they can't really do anything because they die before the action starts happening. So it's really important to pay attention to how avoidable was the death, and what can I do in the next kind of like same situation to avoid this. I need to mind my shields, I need to mind the spam zones and stuff like that. The value of the death is really important, because you can die, like with the previous example, you walk into a spam zone and you die. There is no value in that. Actually, there is negative value because you are feeding the enemy ults. But sometimes you die a valuable death because you killed 2 enemies and you were just so low and so close that you died, but you actually did your job, or you healed, or you comboed with a Genji if you are an Ana, you are comboed a Nano, and then you died. So it was valuable because you won the small objective that you had. You killed the enemy team, you burned ults from the enemy team, or any kind of things like that. And it helps also to think about these kind of categories. Why did you die? Like, is it related to mechanics? Is it related to game sense, positioning, or focus in the game? So mechanics is like, I am unable to land the icicles on the enemy with Mei and I die because they kill me faster. Game sense means that I am walking into a spam zone, for example, and just die because I don't think ahead. I don't try to predict the game. I just wander around, and my lack of game sense makes me die. Positioning means that I don't pay attention to the positioning, like not minding my shields or getting to a flank against heroes that are resilient to flanking. And focus is what we were talking about before. Sometimes you see players just go in and die. They are really not paying attention to the trickle. They spawn late, and then as they get back, they don't really have a goal, and they just die. So if anything, if you just want to do a quick VOD review, and this is actually popularized by Jane, you can do a quick VOD review with a box method. Just draft these 3 categories. He doesn't have the focus there. He has good, so any kind of things that you did well in the game, and there's just take notes, and then you can have at the end of the VOD review a quick one, just a general idea in what category you need to research and what you need to work on. So all in all, if you die, you waste opportunities. That means that you are not being there in the game. And if you die less, that means that even if you suck at aiming, even if you really don't understand the game, there are going to be more opportunities to get experience from, and that is going to lead to your improvement. That is going to lead to you improving at a faster rate, because there are more experience to gain from every match. So it's really important to stay alive, and it's really important to understand why you died. So if you are silver or below, just find the deaths in the game, in the videos, and try to answer these questions. Try to work your way back and try to figure out why you died in a certain situation. Questions to that?
No.
Anybody? Anything?
No questions. You're doing good.
All right. Okay. So the next one is the second level in my system, Teamfights and objectives. So we had some comments here on YouTube from Tone, Teamfights. This is the next one. And also misusage of abilities and that, yeah. Actually, we are going to get to those as well, like misusage of the abilities. So Teamfights and objectives. Overwatch is revolving around objectives. You can kill the enemy team, you can play this game as Call of Duty style and just try to kill the enemies, but you are not going to win the game. And it's really basic understanding that you have to play for the objective. And when we are reviewing Teamfights, so this goes like, if I want to do this layer by layer, I'm looking at the video sequentially, like looking at what is happening. And there's a death that we were talking about. I died here, here, and here. But in between when I die, there are going to be other kind of things. And now we are going in more depth into these other kind of things that we can pay attention to. So usually there's going to be a team fight first, unless you get picked really early. There's going to be a team fight when you die or when you survive that. Teamfights are really important because the game revolves around teamfights, and if you see the dynamic of the game, there are a lot of downtimes, and the action usually happens when teamfights are going on. So teamfights are really important points in the game, which we can use for the VOD review to be able to take away any kind of things that we can improve on. So regarding the teamfights, positioning, are you in a good position? And this means that if you are a tank, are you in the front line, or are you too slow and letting anyone push in? Because that's actually your mistake if you let somebody do that. It can be counterintuitive, but usually when you see people running in and tanks crying again about these kind of people, you can, like, generally you are fast enough to be in the front line and you can save or at least try to salvage these people. So this is with tanks. With DPS, you really need to mind your lines of sight. Am I accessible from a line of sight that I don't pay attention to? Like, am I exposing my right side when I try to focus to something that's right in front of me? Because that means that there's a really lot of dead space that I'm not paying attention to, and I can get damage in from there, or I can die. And it also means that you need to be in a good position to be able to do your job, and this is true to everyone. Tanks need to mitigate damage and create space for their teammates. That creating space means that you need to give opportunities for your teammates to get into good positions to do their jobs. DPS needs to pressure the enemy. Pressuring the enemy also creates space, break shields, and get picks. Get picks is the most important. I should have started with that. So you get picks, you kill the enemies, you are able to win fights. So DPS does that. And healers needs to use their healing to keep allies alive, and also their utility to deny important enemy resources. Think about the Ana nade. If you make the enemy team purple, they can't heal, and that gives a really big opportunity for your tanks to push in and your DPS to do permanent damage to the enemies and get picks more easily. So when you are thinking about positioning, you are also thinking about your job. Am I in a position to be able to do my job well? You also should think about damage control. Like, am I taking too much damage here? Because if I take too much damage, that means that my supports need to focus on me because I'm dumb, and that's a misplay. They should focus on the really important things during the team fight. Can you avoid getting into a tight spot where you are getting damaged or killed? And also, when you get a lot of damage into yourself from the enemies, that means that you are feeding the enemy ults. They are going to have ults more quickly, and that can also win the team fights for them. So if you see enemies, like you are playing a tank, a frontliner, and you see that the enemies have ults really quickly, you notice that in the game, you can work your way back and figure out that, okay, it was because of my dumbness, because I didn't hold up the shield, and that means that I fed 1000 HP to the enemy DPS ults, and they were able to pull the Genji and just kill us really quickly. So these things are all interconnected, and that's why I mentioned that you shouldn't overwhelm yourself. You should really try to figure out what's going on in the situation and in the specific part of the review that you are paying attention to. Okay, getting back to the team fight, targets. Target priorities are really important. You should know who you are fighting against. You should know who your targets are. This is tightly connected to the job. Like, if you are a frontliner tank, you are most likely going to fight the enemy frontliner. If you are a DPS, you need to figure out who you want to kill. The most obvious example is when you play Widowmaker. With Widow, if there is an enemy sniper, you need to be able to kill the enemy sniper before you can really do anything in the game, because if you leave the enemy sniper to do their job, they are going to kill you, and we are back to the first level. Why did I die here? Okay, ult. How did I use my ult? Did I actually use my ult or kept to it? And it's really important to think about ults as resources, and when we are judging resources, we are judging value as well, return of investment, if you want to call it like that. I ulted here, I killed 3 people. That can be good, and that can also be bad, because if that's we have 3 people, they have 6, and I ult and kill 3 of them, and they kill the rest of us, that's a wasted ult because I didn't really have any kind of value. Yes, I can upload the video to YouTube, but that's not much to work with in the game. So you need to think about the ult and the value, or if you had an opportunity that you missed during the team fight. And you also need to think about focus. So when you go into a team fight, you need to have a clear goal of what you need to do. And this is again tightly connected to your job. What's the win condition? I need to kill the enemy DPS because, for example, they have a Reaper. The Reaper was doing a lot of damage to my tanks. I need to take care of the Reaper. Or I need to sleep the Genji because the Genji is going to ult. Or I need to land the nade in a way that denies enemy healing. So think about what you need to pay attention to. What are you fighting for? And if you are between silver and gold, so this is the second level now, you should really start paying attention to the team fights as well. I really recommend that if you are silver or below, just try to focus on the why did you die here question, because it can give you a lot of things to work on. And when you are above silver, below gold, start paying attention, or above silver, start paying attention to team fights as well. Any questions to this? And really, if you need to, if you need me to clarify anything that we are talking about, or have additional questions, or you think that I missed something, then make sure to ask the question. It's a workshop after all. Nope. Okay. So the next one. So now we watch the video, we see a team fight, we died. We can take a lot of things away. And I really want to emphasize that it doesn't really matter how you take notes. You kind of just need to take notes to make it permanent, to be able to sum it up at the end of the VOD review. And it can be as easy as I shown you a notepad right next to you as you do VOD reviews, or it can be a Google Docs or anything like that. Just take those notes and make sure that you are able to sum things up. Okay, so the next level, game knowledge and game sense. I think that game sense is really complex in this game, and so I recommend not to pay attention to a lot of this below gold, because you are just going to overwhelm and overthink. You're going to overwhelm yourself and overthink a lot of mistakes. So just focus on the basics. But after a while, you need to start thinking about game sense. And a lot of goes into this. Some examples. Your picks, like what kind of hero are you bringing to the team? Is it good for the team? Is it good for the map? So for example, a map which has a lot of verticality, you have to climb to the top of buildings, generally needs heroes that have some kind of movement that makes them able to climb these things, or it's at least an advantage that you can use. There are also things like, if the other support is a Lucio, I shouldn't go Zenyatta in most cases, unless that's the meta, but that's a different story. But you need to identify any kind of mistake in the team comp, or any kind of weakness in the team comp, and try to figure out if you want to patch that mistake with a good pick, or if you want to just go with the strengths of your team. So sometimes you can, of course, decide that it's more important to have a really high damage potential for the snipers, for example, and just pocket the Widowmaker because the Widowmaker is good enough, and you don't really need to heal because the Widowmaker is going to kill everyone in the enemy team. But these are really specific situations. Generally, it's recommended to, unless you know the team, to just go for patching up the mistakes. Counters, and this is also why it is recommended for higher levels in the game, because you are going to be more familiar with the game, you are going to be more familiar with the heroes, and then you can start thinking about real counters, like what can I pick here to play against the picks in the enemy team? Are there enemies that you could better counter? So for example, there's a Tracer in the enemy team who does a lot of work, then click Brigitte and try to peel for your support teammate to be able to stay alive and to be able to make your life a little bit more easy. Ults, are you using too little or too many? Like we talked about the team fight, any kind of wasted potential, and also we covered this one. Regarding the team, like game sense wise, am I using my team? And using is really the word I wanted to use here. Generally, we can safely say that you cannot rely on a team in a solo environment, but you can still use the team. They are taking damage if they are standing in front of you. They are diverting enemy attention, giving you space to get to a position which is beneficial, where you can do your job from. They are taking damage and making you able to farm your ult and stuff like that. So thinking about the team, am I using my team right, or am I really into a solo mentality and I just go in and die alone? Can I do anything about that? And all these questions should be asked of yourself or of the one who you are reviewing. Can something be done here that leads to a little bit more on the positive side? Mechanics. Are you missing shots, messing up abilities, missing walls with Mei, placing it too far away, not hitting headshots with Widow, not hitting your nades or counter nades with Ana? Map knowledge. Sometimes you can see yourself backing, and this is one of the most common things with the lack of map knowledge, that someone is backing from the enemies and they hit a wall because they don't really already have a good mental image in their heads about the map they are playing. That means that they are not experienced with the game, and this can give a good idea about that they need to pay more attention to building up the lexical knowledge. And this is also like, do I know that there is a small HP pack there and then I can heal myself? Because sometimes players just miss that. There's a hidden one, or that's a little bit away from the beaten path. Enemy knowledge, what the enemy heroes do, and predictions, like what's the common behavior of the enemies that are done here. Do I know, I play McCree for example, do I know how much I need to wait before I can stun the Genji? Or do I see myself throwing the stun into the deflect and getting killed because of it? There are a lot of things that come to predictions. Control of threat, avoiding damage, we covered that. This is really game sense and game knowledge. What are the parts of the map where I am in danger of being hit? What are the line of sights where I can expect snipers to look at me from? I really need to be focused on covering myself, either with just by the body of my teammates or staying behind shields to try to avoid these kinds of damage. Ult economy is a little bit advanced.
Oh.
Hello.
What happening?
We are doing a workshop on VOD reviews.
Crazy.
All right. So continuing with the topic, ult economy. So on different levels, like paying attention to myself first. Am I using my ult right? We covered this already. Paying attention to, do I have any kind of combo potential with my teammate? And Nano Blade comes to mind, Nano Soldier comes to mind, Nano Visor. What else? Grav, Dragon, so anything like that. If they are not really working together with me, sometimes I can react to them. Like I hit the tab, I see that the Zarya has the Grav. I hope that she's going to use it in the next team fight, and I don't waste the Dragon, but I wait for it. It's better with communications and with teamwork, of course. And then you start paying attention to the enemies. What do I need to react to? I have Zen. I shouldn't just use my ult to heal. I should use against the enemy Genji or any kind of kill ult that the enemy has to prevent us from dying. Yeah, so if you are above gold, but below plat, add this to your VOD review as well. Try to pay attention to what's going on in the game in the bigger sense. So not just in the team fight, not just when you died, but try to pay attention to in between things, like when you are getting back to the team fight, when you are cleaning up after the team fight. Are there any kind of questions where you can, among these or others, where you can answer with yes, I can do something better, and add that to your notes. Any questions? No questions. Okay, so now that you guys are here, how many bronze to silver do we have?
One question though, I'm not bronze to silver, but are we talking about peaks or current SR?
So current SR.
Now, guys.
Okay.
Okay, above silver, below gold. Gold to plat.
One question though, I'm not bronze to silver, but are we talking about peaks or?
We all have echo again. Sorry about that.
Okay. I'm in gold. I am one of those people who made the dreadful mistake of having competitive anxiety for a long time, and so it's like I look at my SR and I'm probably further along in the game, and with skill, and have recently begun to play competitive again. So I like to throw that in. To as many people could hear that as possible.
All right.
Don't avoid competitive because you're worried about numbers.
That's right.
As you pointed out earlier, Alien.
Yeah.
It is the place to put yourself to the test that has nothing to do with the numbers. Those will follow your skill rather than the other way around. Anyways,
in the wise words of
soapbox. Yeah.
In the wise words of Karq, you play to improve your SR follows with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know where I'm at, but I'm SR is gold, high gold.
Okay, gold to plat.
High gold would be about 2.3 to 2.4k.
Yeah.
Okay, plat.
It's like just under plat.
Hello.
I think I'm 2.9k though right now, and my peak is about 3.2.
Okay. And
so it's more a drop.
Yeah.
Thing.
It's not a big one though.
Because I stopped playing the game for like 3 weeks, and right now I changed my keybinds, so.
Oh yeah, so you have to relearn. Yeah, that usually anything that we change regarding our
and
mechanics.
I also changed my mouse and my mouse pad.
Oh yeah.
So that doesn't help very much.
That can lead to a drop for sure. So changing anything like that, the sensitivity, the key bindings, even the mouse pad or the chair, for example, it can all lead to a little bit of drop.
I changed that one as well.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any diamond or buff? Not a lot. We have
diamond and above, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Cool. So it's really nice to see. Generally, when I am coaching, for example, I have most of my pupils from gold and plat, but it's really important to understand that whatever skill you are, if you pay attention to improvement instead of just grinding the game, you are going to benefit from it. So it's really good to pay attention to your improvement, if that's important for you. But when you are here, that means to me that it is. Okay, so go with the next level. Resource usage. And I put this after gamesense because resource usage is really specific. Like these kind of gamesense things are general and can be applied to any kind of hero. So if you learn generally, if you learn like what is where the spam zones are, it's general to among all the heroes. But when we are talking about the next level, resource usage, we are talking about abilities and we are talking about ults, and you need to be familiar with how these work on a hero basis and what kind of general usages they have and stuff like that. So what am I looking for? I am looking for abilities where I see that I have no value. I am looking for abilities that are not being used with enough frequency. I am looking for abilities where I am not really using them as I should. And that's the hard part, where you need to be knowledgeable enough about the game to know how the kind of ability should be used. Like, these are, when I'm stunning a Genji, do I throw the nade into the Genji above or below the Genji? When I'm walling with Mei, how do I adjust the wall? Who do I wall away? So kind of what is my job with that resource that I'm talking about? So looking at the game, looking at the video, seeing that I am missing a lot of my stuns. It might be because I don't have a good understanding of how far the stun goes, or I am not using deflect with Genji because I always forget about it, or I'm not using shift with Mei and just die without healing myself up. A lot of times people forget to use abilities or don't use them frequently enough, and the good question is, am I using the abilities in a good frequency? And this is hard to keep track of because you kind of have to have a feeling about what you are doing in the game. But if you pay attention to it, you can derive a lot of important findings from these. Value, as I mentioned, am I providing team or self value with the abilities, or am I just throwing it away, feeding the enemy with it? A good example is that I have my ult full with Reinhardt, for example. I am able to use the fire strike in the enemy team. So when is it a good idea? I have a full ult with Rein, the enemy team is still far away. Is it a good idea to fire strike into them?
No.
Why not?
Why not? Because it's not a safe hit, and you don't have to get ult charge from it, so you don't need it right now. So
that's right. But
yeah, for ult charge you mostly do it off cooldown, and then you try and secure a kill with it, I'd say.
That's
I don't know.
That's right. If I'm still really far away from the enemy team but can see them, should I just not use the fire strike, or is there anything else I can do? Like, should I just keep to it and wait until I get close enough for the enemy team to actually make meaningful damage that they can't heal back that easily? Or is there anything else that I can do?
I'd say if there's someone low and if there's a chance to kill him, I'd say fire it, or if there's any predictable movements, like really predictable.
Yeah, those can work.
Like, for example, it's not a movement, but if somebody's trapped in a Junkrat trap,
yeah,
he literally can't move. So.
Yeah, if you have a kill potential with it, going with the usage can be beneficial. What I see in a lot of reviews that I do is that players are with full ult, they are still doing the fire strike into the enemy team, or they are stopping altogether. And if you are playing a lot of Reinhardt, and if you know that this is a common mistake, you can see that the enemy has ult just because they are not using fire strike as frequently as they used it. So it's a good idea to try to use it in a way that misses the enemies. You still use the fire strike, but you really try to aim in a way that misses the enemies, doesn't give ult charge to their supports, but still keeps the secret of you having an ult. Of course, they are maybe able to track it, but it can be a thing that you are giving away your intent or your state of your resources because you are using something or you are not using something. So also I think it's interesting, this kind of dynamic in the game. Regarding the abilities, are you using the ability well? Are you doing your job with it? Like, you are For example, Mei is a meta pick right now, and Mei's wall is not only for separating the enemies and trying to overrun them, it's also for breaking lines of sight and denying enemy damage and denying enemy healing on the front line, for example. So do you really know all the kinds of uses of your ability? Are you able to use it well? Are you able to decide well? And this is what I'm looking for. Am I placing the wall in a way that benefits from or gives us an opportunity to break the line of sight or mitigate damage in the enemy team? Am I using my need not only to heal ourselves but aggressively to deny enemy healing? Am I using my discord on targets who are not dropping behind a shield but on targets who are my DPS are able to reach and try to damage? So things like this. Regarding ults, how fast you are charging the ult, like how do you know if the ult charges from healing or just from damage? Are you able to quickly charge it, or not doing your job and not really being able to charge your ult? Are you keeping it for too long, not using missing the opportunities? So it goes like you watch the video and you see that there's a huge opening in the enemy team. I am Reinhardt, the enemy Reinhardt shield just broke. I hear the audio in the VOD review, but I can still remember that I was really preoccupied by landing my fire strike on a far away enemy because they were low, and I missed the opportunity to do a big shatter and win this team fight. So we are looking for things like this in the VOD review. Any missed opportunity? Am I using too early? Am I baited into using it? Or something like the shatter is a good example, that the enemy drops the shield and you shatter and they get the shield back and it's denied altogether. So what kind of mistakes am I doing? Combo potential, can you work with teammates for a better result? And counter potential is also really important. Like, did I waste kinda my ultimate to gain a small value that could have been a lot bigger one if I kept to it, knowing that the enemy team, and using the game sense in the previous one, knowing that the enemy team has potential to wipe our team, and I should keep my trance against the nanoblade, or I should keep the shatter for the nanoblading Genji to kill them, and trading one ult for two. So these are the things I am looking for. Any questions regarding resources? Nope.
There's a question. Somebody wanted to ask a question. Hang on.
Hey, Alien.
Yes.
Hey, so about resource. So I know way back you're talking about ultimate. Good resources to bait out, and sometimes one Reinhardt shatter, bait out the other. But
cannot really hear you.
Shatter.
Oh, we can hear some words.
Fudge.
You can.
Is it good? Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yes.
Yes.
If an ulting Rein doesn't get anything but baits out the other Rein's ult, is that a good use of resources?
If you trade evenly, and if you don't really have anything to set up with, yes, that can be good. Because usually we are looking for even situations, but if you could set up with an ult with one of your teammates and you just waste one Reinhardt ult for another Reinhardt's wasted ult, then it can be fine. It delays that ult and makes it easier for the whole team to think about the situation. Like, it's a big equation, there are a lot of variables in it, and you just take out that kind of thing to worry about, so you don't have to think about it anymore. So that in that sense it makes it easier for you, but generally you should try to set it up with another teammate or something like that. But even trades are acceptable in most situations.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Alright, so if you are plat or above, this is now a level that you should really pay attention to, and also the levels before this. The 5th level is player-related things, and we are getting into the emotions, how we feel, what we are paying attention to. It's not easy to judge this from another person's VOD review, but when you are doing the VOD review for yourself, you are generally able to remember how you were in that game and pay attention to, were you really focused on the game? Were you paying attention to it, or you were just doing shopping lists in your head instead of clicking the enemy's heads? Mechanics, are there noticeable bad mechanics like sensitivity issues, not really being able to land abilities, anything that is related to the fine mechanics of the game? Like sometimes you can see players not really being able to control their movements. It's maybe because they have the sensitivity too high. So when you're doing VOD reviews for yourself, compare the feel of the game with a professional player is a good thing when it comes to mechanics. Like, do they have screens shaking and going into one direction really quickly? Probably not. So maybe I am doing something badly. Do they have a fluid movement? This is also something that a lot of players need to learn, how to move fluidly in the game. Like, instead of turning in sharp angles and turning slowly and reacting to things slowly, you just pay attention to learning the game enough to be fluid and to be able to dodge the enemy. That's also something that is correlated with mechanics. How good am I with dodging, with avoiding damage? And a lot of mental things, and these are the hardest one, but they can play a big role in our win rate and in our ability to play the game. Can you spot anything that tilts you? Can you do something with that? Like, can you let it go? Not going into psychology here, but if you are able to identify things that make your game worse, then working with that can help a lot. Okay. Or other kinds of negative behavior that is happening. Yep, question?
Yeah, basically what makes me really tilt play a game, I felt like I did really good, and then I go into a VOD, like we lose. I go into a VOD and I don't see any mistakes, and I made like really big plays. I just get so tilted because I just realized I couldn't do more. There was nothing I could do, like literally.
Usually, it's some games are not winnable. Like, you need to be able to accept that some games are games that we don't really have control of or on. But you say that you don't think you made any kind of mistakes. It's like, I have done about 500 hours of coaching and VOD reviews so far, and I believe there is no such player who doesn't make any mistakes. There is always something to improve.
Yeah, I meant any mistakes that would have changed the game.
Maybe it was not a mistake. Maybe it was just like, you can do a lot of good things, but sometimes they are not as meaningful as other things that you could have done. And identifying these are really hard. I'm talking about things like, you ult in a team fight, let's say with Genji, you get a few kills, but you were ulting too early and you still win the team fight, but you were ulting too early and the enemy team was able to regroup, and now they had the ult advantage and they held the point because of that. You did well because you killed enemies and you won the team fight that was happening, so there's basically no mistake there to notice. But in the next one, that put you in a bad ult economy compared to the enemy team, and they were forming up the ults maybe and waiting for you to do something with yours, and they were able to keep the last point because of that. So sometimes it's not easy to identify misplays, and these are really not mistakes, these are misplays, but these are the hardest one. And usually when you feel like there is no mistake, it's a really good idea to put that VOD review and ask someone who is on a higher level to try to identify any kind of things that you can use for your improvement, because it also teaches you about what you need to pay attention to. What are the things that you are still not noticing in the game that you could do better? Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So player related things and stuff like that, any kind of mood related, emotional or preparedness. Like sometimes you get into a game, we are really tired, we are playing late and we suck because of that, we miss all our shots. Maybe it's a takeaway that we shouldn't play 6 hours and expect us to perform at the same level after the last or in the last few matches. So anything like that. And from this point, it's really specific and fine game related stuff. Like I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Fine mechanics like aiming, movement, ability, ult usage, any kind of tech that is related. Like am I, and this can be learned by comparison. Again, watching other people's VOD reviews is a really good source, or watching educative streamers who are commentating what they are doing, and trying to find or anything that happens in a professional match that you don't really, you can't really think of a way to do it. Like for example, I had someone who came to me with Lucio. I think he was silver something, and he said that he has trouble with war riding. He is not able to hit the shots, and it's really hard because he's always going towards the enemies and he dies. And he didn't know that he could go backwards on the wall. So sometimes players miss these kinds of little things, and it can also be tech, like how can I do the most amount of damage with Ashe, for example? What is the sequence of abilities and basic attacks to do the most damage to the enemy? Line of sight control, really just how exposed am I and what can I see from that position? Should I really go towards the enemy, or can I rely on range? Should I really expose myself from this side and this side, or can I stay back in cover and just kill the enemies in front of me? Anything like that. And this is the same with tanks. This is the same, like tanks shouldn't expose themselves to all angles. They should really try to protect their main resources behind them. And with healers, you shouldn't expose yourself too much to be able to heal your teammates. Predictions, we touched this topic as well. Movement of the enemies, like seeing something like missing shots on a tracer, for example. That's I'm playing Hanzo and I'm unable to touch the tracer. Then it's something that needs to be worked on. It's a prediction of the enemy's movement, prediction of skill sequences, like I mentioned, Genji and McCree. Enemy character predictions, like where they are going to stand. Am I able to predict where the enemy widow is going to be? Am I able to predict where the enemy team is going to ult? Can I try to deny it? Can I try to do something about my allies to help them to stay alive? Hero related knowledge, where and how should the hero be used, best practices, tags, role related knowledge, and a lot of things can be said here, like zoning, shield dancing, peeling, pocketing. If you know what these mean, that means probably that you can use it and you can pay attention to it. Peeling is, for example, a really important thing for supports and DPS mostly, to identify that it's your mistake that someone is being hard flanked and you are not helping them to stay alive. You might need to rethink, and you need to go back and peel for them, help them to stay alive and help to shoo these kind of flankers away. Situational awareness, like, am I really in the game? Am I paying attention to my flanks? Am I paying attention to my abilities? Am I paying attention to the combo potentials? And team related advanced skills, combos, setups, rollouts, anything like that. So like with Genji, I can just run ahead and deflect the enemy damage back right in the beginning to gain ult charge and to mitigate some of the damage and create a shield break potential and the tempo advantage for us. So there are a lot of fine things, and there is really no guide that covers all the aspects of the game. I have been working on one just to show you a general idea of how many things are in the game. This is with Kogel, and these are all really fine skills in Overwatch that you need to pay attention to. And as you can see, there are a lot of things, and this is really far from ready, like map knowledge, attacking and defending strategies, routes, health packs, just a lot of things that you can and need to pay attention to. But the important thing here is that you pay attention to the situation, try to figure out what is happening there, and if that is really something that you can improve, or if that's really not that important to pay attention to. And yeah, so what should be the takeaway from this workshop is that you should start doing VOD reviews regularly, set goals for yourself to do a VOD review at least one a week, but you can figure out how many you want to do and how frequently you can do them. General good rule of thumb is if you spend 15 to 20% of your time on practicing VOD review research and trying to learn from others, from Reddit articles or videos, that's a good one. So 15 to 20% of the games. Do a VOD review and formulate 1 to 3 goals to pay attention to. Try to keep measuring your progress, how much you win. There are different sheets where you can watch your progress and just figure out if the things that you are working on are working on the long term. And also review yourself after a week, for example. See if the VOD review that you are doing is actually beneficial, your goals are good and stuff like that. And if you find out that you were able to increase your critical hit accuracy or lower the amount of deaths or anything that was in your goals, then really just celebrate yourself because you did well, and you should keep the good work up. And that's what I had to say about VOD reviews. I really hope that it was useful. And if you have any questions or want to discuss anything regarding the topic, it's now a good time.
So whenever we do these self-VOD reviews, is it good to kind of keep like a journal?
Yeah. So one, what I recommended is the notepad with notes, but you should really keep a history, like a log of your goals and what you are working on. And it's a really good idea to track your progress and try to track your SR, wins and losses, because that gives you a good idea about how good your self-VOD reviews are and how good you are at keeping your promises to yourself, basically, because you have the goal. Are you really working on the goals? So if you are really keen in going in depth with the numbers, I know some players do that. You can define KPIs and say that you should complete 2 of your goals every week, something like that, so you can measure your progress and take this like a real training for yourself.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did any of you guys get a feeling to do VOD reviews next week?
Sure.
Sure.
Well,
So
yeah.
The other person can talk. I don't know. You wanted to say something?
Tom?
Oh, sorry. Ignore me.
Okay. Then just go at work.
So I don't do it regularly, but I do it when I feel like I need it. Is that a mistake or not?
When you feel like you need it is like the thirst. This is how I usually describe it. When you are thirsty, you are already dehydrated. So it's just trying to solve an issue that's already present. And with VOD reviews, with training in general, it's a good idea to keep doing it on a regular basis if you can do that, because that gives you a way to form it as a habit. So if you just only do it sometimes, if you only go to the gym once in every month, you are not going to really benefit from it. And this is the same with any kind of training and with VOD reviewing as well. So if you are doing anything, it's better than nothing, but it's generally advised to try to do it regularly and try to pay attention to it.
Okay.
But sometimes you do one VOD review, you get a lot of takeaways from it, you work on it, and you can actually improve, but it's more consistent, and we are striving to reach consistency in these games to be able to really improve in the game.
I have a question about the technical aspects of recording and all of that. I know there's more options than, there's time to talk about how to record and then to look back through things. Do you have any in particular? You recommended a couple at the beginning, I think Insights and I think Q.gg.
Yeah. So
are those good for solo self-review as well, or would you just simply kind of record and watch it record with the
if you
kind of
really
your choice?
don't want to put in too much work, then just record and play with VLC and take notes. If you want to keep a digital track of your achievements and your history of VOD reviews, you can use Insights or Q, or there are a few sites, but these are the more popular ones. So you are able to leave comments on specific timestamps, and then you can go back in your history and review these again and again if you like to do so.
Okay, thank you.
But regarding the tools that you can use, on the Discord there's a channel called Resources. It's / is that how you call it? / I know. Resources channel.
Yes, underscore, I think.
Underscore, yeah. Sorry about that. Underscore resources, and you can look at the tools there. A lot of tools regarding taking notes, mock callouts, and the tools that you can use.
Sweet.
Any other questions?
Where am I able to highest are VOD reviewers from? Like, I don't in particular have any that are above masters that I know of.
One of the easiest things to do is to go on Reddit and describe what you are looking for. Usually they like if you state your SR, state the heroes that you play with and what kind of advice you are looking for, and post your video on YouTube, and they are going to give you feedback. But there are also Discords like the Dojo Discord. Some of our players and community coaches are higher levels, but Jane's Discord is one of the places where there are a lot of coaches doing free coaching as well. So I think there should be if you go to Overwatch University's Reddit, they have a thread about these kinds of Discords that you can try to check out. But posting there can work really nicely. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Looking at the YouTube chat, not a lot of questions. Anything else that I can help you with? Okay. Then thank you for your attention. I hope that it was useful, and see you guys in the next one.